Alright, on to the next item on the list here is actually a Dragonhead. Now, this series is really great, especially in the first 2 or 3 volumes of the series itself. Because the way it starts out is you have Teru, who is just on a sort of train ride to some city on a school field trip, and then he sort of looks out the window and he sees just this big cataclysmic explosion outside, and he's kind of not sure what just happened as a result of it. And basically the whole train bus just gets demolished. And by the time he wakes up to see what happened, he looks outside and just sees that he's just stuck in it. He's just stuck halfway through a tunnel. And the whole rest of the first few volumes is him, searching around, trying to find a way out of the tunnel, finds that it's blocked at both ends, and then he finds out that there are a couple of more survivors. Notably, him, this unconscious dude named Nobuo, and a little girl, a classmate of his who's actually unconscious. And he kind of takes care of her. And then, of course, here's Nobuo. Really, this first arc right here, where they're in the tunnel and stuck, is probably the best of the entire series, just in terms of the horror factor and everything, because they're stuck in here for like weeks, and the whole time, Nobuo, the other kid, who was picked on and bullied as out previously, is just sort of breaking down and just slowly giving into the madness of the situation, that they're never going to get rescued, they're going to die in this hellhole, and just it's the end of everything. And it becomes basically a struggle against with Teru of also just sort of not giving up on getting out of there, and also not getting killed by Nobuo as he sort of descends into complete and total psychotic madness, especially when he gets a hold of makeup, and he just sort of draws all over his face, and he just goes completely feral, and he ties a steak knife to the end of a stick, and he just starts running around, and he plans to sacrifice the girl named Akko to just sort of this demon god that he sort of created in his head. And needless to say, they eventually get out of there, and then they it just sort of goes from there into this kind of a survival horror kind of story where they're sort of running around trying to figure out what the hell happened. They go to various locales and they see just everything's rubble. They see just swirling dust clouds in the sky. It's hard to tell whether it's night and day anymore because everything's just covered in this soot, and it's just a depressing and awful state of being for the entire place. Even the whole sections of the country is actually covered in covered by flood water, and the whole cities and whole prefectures are completely cut off from one another, which leads to people going into complete anarchy, and they have to sort of deal with that. They find some soldier guys later that kind of help them out, but it's still a grim and dark state of being, and it's really great, and I love it a lot, and it does keep the horror factor going the whole time. It just sort of dips after that initial bit because it's so good, and I mean that's really the only thing anyone can say about Dragonhead. Nobody can say that they hate Dragonhead. It's just that it was obviously really good at the beginning. It's kind of like Star Wars, the first trilogy, where Return of the Jedi is still a great movie. It's not as good as Empire, which was amazing. It's kind of like that. But it's still really great. You get a real great relationship with the characters and everything, and it still remains dark, and for that setting of tone, it scores higher than the rest of them, and sort of keeping up with its main premise like that. Then next up here is Uzumaki. Now, of course, I'm copping out a little bit by putting another Junji Ito title on the same list, but God help me, I can't find that many horror manga that are just straight up horror and really good at the same time. But Uzumaki is probably one of the best entries into horror manga. It's just this sort of little town named Kuruzucho, where just bizarre happenings occur, and most of the bizarre happenings are based around this simple theme of spirals. As you can tell, Uzumaki, the title itself is Japanese for spiral or something, and just horrible, awful things just keep happening around related to the spiral, including one old woman who kind of becomes so scared and freaked out by spirals because her husband died, sort of wrapping himself in a drum barrel in a spiral shape, that it sends her into madness, and she can't look at spirals anymore. She just hates them to death. And it gets to the point where she actually cuts off her fingertips, the skin on her fingertips, because the fingerprints make spirals, and it even gets to the point where she also stabs herself in the ear, because the inner eardrum actually has a spiral shape in it, and she just takes a knife and stabs herself in the ears, and eventually she just loses it, and also there's other little stories in here as well about this one girl who keeps getting this weird spiral shape on her forehead, and then the spiral shape just gets bigger and bigger until it consumes her entire face, and it's just disgusting. It really is. It is disturbing imagery, and really it's because of that it gets so great. There's a part in here where this guy, half his body falls off, and he sort of forms his intestines into like a spring, and he just starts attacking people. And the only reason why I think this series wasn't longer is just he ran out of stories to tie into a spiral. Also, you can watch the live-action movie Uzumaki, which was made, and well, it's not as good, especially with the ending, but it's still pretty good. It's about the best I think they could have made for a live-action adaptation of it. It's still really fun. Definitely get it anywhere you can, because this is prime cut stuff. Then let's see. Moving on to the number 2 on the list, we get The Drifting Classroom. Now, I've talked about this series before, but again, you guys probably haven't seen it. The Drifting Classroom is a story about a school of elementary school kids, and their whole building just gets magically teleported to a faraway, distant, just deserted dystopia, and the whole rest of the series is these kids just surviving. The grown-ups actually all sort of go into psychosis, and they just start either beating the kids up, or they just kill themselves, realizing that there's no hope alive. And really, it's the kids who manage to keep their sanity around long enough, mostly because the kids sort of have a bigger imagination, and they can sort of accept the idea that they've been teleported away, and can sort of rebound from it. But of course the adults, who are sort of more grounded in reality, they just sort of break down and just fall to pieces with the idea that they've been just mysteriously teleported to this deserted wasteland, and there's pretty much no hope of survival. And also, even some of the kids run away scared just into the deserted wasteland, and they just sort of disappear. after the first few volumes where it's just the parents, the older people sort of dying off, it sort of goes into kind of a Lord of the Flies kind of thing. Of course, I mean, yeah, it kind of goes like that. But then it gets real crazy. Like, some of the kids break off another faction. Some of them actually crucify other kids. There's an outbreak from a bubonic plague because there's this squirrel that was infected that got onto that was in the classroom when it teleported. So now the kids are like trying to cure themselves, and it's really wonderful horror, and it stays good horror the whole way through. It is phenomenal. It's amazing that it went for 11 volumes and it didn't slow down. It just got better and better. I think at one point there's like this bizarre giant monster that comes in and attacks the whole school, and of course that's awesome. There's also bizarre insect people, just disgusting stuff you keep running into here. Here's the bizarre insect people creature things with a big eye on top and just little spindly legs and a mouth. Oh yeah, that's the stuff of your horrors and nightmares right there. And also, it has a good ending. It has a good. It's good everything. It hits all the marks and really fantastic. Love it a lot. But then there's still one more to go. So see you then.